Hello viewers, welcome once again to our continuing idea of the test process. In our previous lecture, we had mentioned about the 2-point cross and the problems which we were facing while interpreting the data. Now, if we look at the 2-point test cross once again, in order to have a better understanding of some of the problems which are inherent in this and some of the shortcomings, let us look at a test cross between, that is, we are talking about two genes which are now linked and they are present on the same autosome. So that means a homozygous A plus B plus individual is crossed with a homozygous recessive AB individual. This cross is in fact giving rise to a doubly heterozygous F1 progeny, which is now A plus B plus and AB. Now we have to test cross this with the homozygous recessive parent, which is small ab and AB. What we find is that since these particular genes are linked and they have the recessive mutant alleles, the gametes which are formed, as you can see on your screens, is A plus and B plus and A and small b, giving rise to a double heterozygote in the F1 generation, which is again considered as a wild type phenotype. A wild type phenotype. Now we make a test cross, that is a cross between this F1 wild type and the homozygous recessive parent. What we find here is that if we are going to analyze the progeny for its recombination, we find that there are parental combinations which are non-recombinant. How would we ascertain these categories? We would say that they are again of the wild type, and of course we would get some which are the recombinants, which will show us as to whether recombination has taken place. Now the question is, as we had posed even earlier, how much recombination and how do we ascertain that? So that means this was a 2-point method of mapping, very accurate, no doubt, when it is applied to linearly arranged genes in linkage groups, because there seems to be a beautiful 1:1 correspondence between the linkage groups and the chromosomes. So that means the two genes, if they are close together, you can just go ahead by using a 2-point cross to analyze your data. But then if the genes are far apart, this very procedure now turns out to be inaccurate. Why there are so many inaccuracies? Because number one, you have to consider very many large number of progeny, that is, you have to count them or score them to ensure a high degree of accuracy, and of course the problem of multiple crossovers. So in other words, what would be the limitations of the 2-point linkage analysis, which would prompt us to now modify this whole idea and go over to the 3-point test crosses. If we are going to consider two genes which are located far enough and the crossovers are occurring between them only occasionally, then two of the cases may be possible. It is either or. Either in case one, we would find that the same non-sister chromatids are there for both. As you can see on your screens, the gametes double crossover has taken place and one has nullified the other. So that means although the double crossover has taken place, it is same. The parental gametes are got and it has the crossing over has taken place, but then how do we detect the recombinants? The other case would be that this take place, the crossing over between different non-sister chromatids for both. In this case, of course, you would find the recombinants, and so that means either of these two could happen in case of a situation where the genes are much farther apart on a chromosome. Now the problem before us is how to detect these double crossovers, because we find absolutely no way to ascertain these double crossover detection with the help of a 2-point cross. Now in this case we will have to use the recombination experiments using 3-point test crosses. So that means if there is a third pair of alleles, say C plus and C, which is present in between the two marker genes, then we can easily detect the double exchange, and thereby we can find out as to where and how many of the double crossovers have taken place. Because we know that the two crossovers taking place between the same pair of chromatids would result in a reciprocal exchange of the C plus and the C alleles between the chromatids. If we look at the screens, we would find that there are two crossovers between the same chromatids, and as you can say, interestingly, they are spanning the middle part of the alleles in a triple heterozygote, and this is going to result in a reciprocal exchange of the middle pair of alleles only between the two chromatids. We should have this particular background figure in our mind when we proceed. So we find that this is a very efficient method, because we could detect the middle one. 3-point test cross therefore would be very efficient to find out the recombination data in its reality, and we can make an easy way to determine the order of the 3 genes as they are located on a chromosome. So the third gene is going to be helpful to us to analyze the data and also take into account the double crossovers. So how do we interpret a 3-point test cross? Let us look at a numerical and an example. We take the example of Zea mays, and what are the results of a test cross? Now this has 3 genes on a chromosome. On your screens you will find that the lazy or the prostrate growth habit of Zea mays is characterized by the small LZ, and GL small signifies a glossy leaf, and the small SU for the endosperm of Zea mays, which is sugary. So we are having these 3 genes into consideration. Multiple heterozygous parent in the cross has the genotype which has been shown on your screens, and this is a wild, and we find a recessive idea which is on the lower side. Now you would ask the first question, how did you put LZ and GL and SU in the right order without ascertaining the order? This query is absolutely well founded and natural. It should come in the mind of every student. This is just an arbitrary example. With the help of this example, we are actually going to find out whether this is the right sequence, LZ, GL or SU, or is it different. But then we have to start somewhere to explain a particular concept. So that means the initials of capital L or capital G or capital S, they are going to signify the dominant wild. And we find that whether we have a crossover or a non-crossover, it would be detected immediately. So the 2 most frequent types of gametes with respect to any pair of genes are going to be the non-recombinants, and we would find that if they are the non-recombinants, they would definitely show us that linkage is on and the linkage phase is going on. If we look carefully on our screens, we try to interpret a data of a 3-point cross, and we find that there are several of the combinations out of which we are interested in the ones which are 4 and 2. Now we will come to this figure a little later in details. We find that the sequence, as I said, is not known. We took arbitrarily the position of these 3 genes. Now what we have to do is we have to calculate the double crossover gametes which are produced by the heterozygous parents, and then we have to compare them with the non-recombinant gametes if we have to reach at a particular point. This diagram is just a magnification of the earlier one which I just presented to you. If you look at this very carefully, we would find that 4 are sugary and 2 are lazy and glossy phenotypes. So, they are the least frequent. They are actually the double recombinant progeny which we have to take into account. But then on the other hand, if you look carefully, there are 33 and 40. These are the other ones also which are representing the single recombinants. We have to take into account these two. So, that means we would find that these particular genes LZ, GL and SU would have 3 possibilities. Now, let us come to the idea as to where are they exactly located, and this we can find out only on the basis of a 3-point test cross, because if we had only 2 genes, then there was no question of their order. So, what are the 3 possible orders? The 3 possible orders would be LZ, that is GL in the middle, the second case is SU in the middle, and the third case is LZ in the middle. Let us find out which of these of the possibilities coincides with the data which we had just presented. Not taking into or not forgetting the idea that we have 4 sugary and 2 lazy double recombinant progeny. Let us look at the first case where GL is in the middle. Now, if this is the case, you can find out that double recombinant gametes which are formed are LZ, GL and SU and LZ capital GL and SU. Now, this is not consistent with the data which I just presented to you. If we take another idea, that is the second case possibility where we find that LZ gene is in the middle, we find that here in this case the recombinant gametes are GL, LZ and SU and GL, LZ and SU. They are also inconsistent with the data. So, the third case seems to be good, because if we take SU in the middle as the possibility, then the recombinants are LZ, SU and GL, and LZ, SU and GL, they are representing the idea of consistency with the data that we had presented. Taking this into account, if we find or if we have concluded that SU is there in the middle, then the correct gene order of the heterozygous parent should be not what we had described earlier. That was only an arbitrary example, and I told you that maybe there would be a need to change, and there is. So, you can see on the right hand box that the sequence should be LZ, GL, SU. This was the earlier one, but the actual sequence should be which has been given on the left, and that is LZ, SU, GL by small LZ, SU and GL. So, we could find this out only on the basis of ascertaining the different situations as to which of the gene is in the middle. Now, there could be so many other possibilities that we have to take into account. If in a triple heterozygote, there are so many possibilities. First possibility is that there is only a single crossover in the LZ, SU region. Now, this is going to yield the reciprocal recombinants, as you can see on your screen. This is only a single crossover and you will get capital LZ, SU, GL. Now, please remember SU has to be in the middle, and these are the reciprocal recombinants. Another possibility would be that there the crossover is not between the LZ and SU, it is between SU and GL, and this also yields reciprocal recombinants of a different type. The third possibility is of a double crossover. Now, in double crossover we find that there is a 2-strand double crossover which is going to yield reciprocal double recombinant products, as you can see on your screens, starting with capital LZ, small SU and capital GL, and likewise another one which is small LZ, capital SU and GL. Still another possibility is a 3-strand double crossover, As you can see on your screens, the chromatids 1, 2 and 3, they are involved, and the reciprocal double recombinant product is got, and in addition 2 single recombinant products are also got. So this makes the story even more complicated. In addition, there is still another 3-strand double crossover, which is say between LZ, all right, and the SU. This would also give rise to set of 2 single recombination products and a double recombinant product. So, and finally, a possibility would be that there is a 4-strand double crossover. That means chromatids 1, 2, 3 and 4, all of them are participating in recombination, and you would get, in this case, you would find reciprocal double recombinants, 2 single recombinant products and reciprocal single recombinant product in the SUGL region. This is how we signify, as you can see on your screens, a 4-strand double crossover. All the 4 chromatids 1, 2, 3, 4, they are participating, and you can get different types of recombinants. So that means 2 reciprocal products which are resulting from any crossover or any combination of crossover would have an equal frequency. So that means their appearance is approximately in equal frequencies among the progeny. So if we are going to now further quantify this reciprocal products of the 3-point cross which we have just mentioned, we find that the total number of recombinants which are occurring in the LZ and SU region happens to be 40 plus 33 plus 4 plus 2, which is 79. And on the other hand, the total number of recombinants in the SUGL region, because we are interested now finding out the distance, we have known the order. So that means they would come out to be 59, 44, 4 plus 2, which is 109. So total becomes, in the sense that the recombinants, as I said earlier, the 2 reciprocal products are nearly in the equal frequency. 44 is to 33 and 59 is to 44. So that means double recombinant chromosomes are going to result from 2 exchanges and 1 in each chromosome, and this is defined by 3 genes, that is LZ, SU. And how do we represent them now? As I said in the previous calculation, now 79 was on one hand, that means 79 by 740 would be percentage, which comes out to be 10.7% of recombinants between LZ and SU. So if the figure is 10.7%, it is very obvious that the map distance between LZ and SU, which is the lazy, and the SU, that is the sugary endosperm, is 10.7 centimorgans or 10.7 map units. On the other hand, if you are talking about the recombinant chromosomes which were considered between SU and GL, they came out to be 109, and out of the total 740, the percentage which is calculated is to the tune of 14.7%, which obviously gives us a map distance between SU and GL, that is the sugary endosperm and the glossy leaves, as 14.7 centimorgans. So now, viewers, time is ripe to construct a genetic map, and because now we know the data. So that means, and we also know the order. So that means between LZ and SU we have 10.7 map units, and between SU and GL we have 14.7 units. The order, of course, is LZ, SU and GL, as we had ascertained earlier. So that means one very important point which you should never forget in these calculations is, and that is, even though the double recombinant chromosomes have single recombinant in both the regions, you have to include the double recombinants while calculating the recombination frequency even between adjacent genes. If we don't do that, then all calculations would go haywire and we will always underestimate the recombination frequency. So that means another very important point which one should remember is that if there is one region where you find that the crossing over is independent of the crossing over in another region, that means now we have two regions, then the probability of a double crossover in these two regions would be equal to the product of the probabilities of the two events which are occurring separately. So we will have the formula of recombination frequency of region 1 by 100 multiplied by recombination frequency in the region 2, which is also divided by 100. We have another very important problem as far as the calculation of the distance is concerned and also the crossing over. Because we have only theoretically mentioned that if the map unit is, say for example 10 units and we have 3 crossovers, so that means if the distance was 20, naturally we can't simply take simple maths to our help and say now the crossovers would be 6. Because in reality it has been found out that the mapping crosses, we find that double crossover progeny will not appear as often as we expect them to be on the basis of the map distances between the genes. Why is so? Because the presence of one crossover somehow interferes with the formation of another crossover nearby, and this type of a phenomenon where there is some sort of a interference is actually called as interference. So we have to take into account what is this interference. That means if there is interference, naturally the number of crossovers would always be less than the expected crossovers due to the phenomenon of interference. The extent of interference may be different, and therefore this extent would be expressed as another value which is called as coefficient of coincidence, which is abbreviated as COC or simply as C. So the coefficient of coincidence technically would be a comparison, that is an observed double crossover frequency over expected double crossover frequency. Naturally we would find that if both these terms are equal, say for example if interference is equal to 1 minus coefficient of coincidence, which is the formula which we have in mind, that is the 1 minus the coefficient of coincidence, and if this is 1, if the value is 1, that means all crossovers have occurred as expected. Whatever was expected was achieved, and in this case it would obviously mean that there was no interference at all. So interference was 0. In other words, we can infer that interference values are inversely related to the coincidence values. Just to summarize the whole idea, we find that the 3-point test cross is having usually a trihybrid cross. It is much more efficient. It includes the double crossovers. It also allows us to calculate the XO interference. So first we have to test the linkage where the genes are linked, and then we have to talk about the most frequent parental types, and then we have to talk about 4 single crossovers, 2 double crossovers, and then you have to compare either the parental type to the double crossover types, and then you have to find out which of the gene is located in the center. This would give us the order, and of course after that, once we conclude that say for example in this case gene Z, in the earlier example we saw that SU was in the center, then we now talk about the calculation of map distances between the two genes which are flanking the other central gene, and then we find out the coefficient of coincidence, which we find that whatever is the double crossover frequency by what is the expected frequency, and then you find with the formula of interference is equal to 1 minus C the right conclusion. So I have also presented a list of various sources as my bibliography. I would recommend all these books to be read thoroughly for getting a comprehensive idea on the genetic map and how to calculate the various linkage maps in terms of the 2 and the 3 test cross procedures. Thank you.